FDIC recap wouldn't be complete without mentioning the latest from On Scene Solutions, our podcast sponsor. This year, On Scene showcased its latest in fire apparatus solutions, including a 1,000-pound rated aluminum transverse toolboard with 70% extension for 40 to 96-inch deep pass-through compartments. Also on display was On Scene's configurable sliding cargo tray, complete with customizable tray separators, adjustable tie-downs, and fold-down gates. If you're trying to spec a tough fire truck, don't forget to spec On Scene at onscenesolutions.com. Hi, Chris Mc Loone here with Fire Apparatus and Emergency Equipment. Welcome to this episode of our podcast. Today's going to be a commentary, probably a little bit shorter than normal, but I don't have any scheduled guests today. But there are some things that I wanted to hit on this month. We've got July 4th coming up. I wanted to talk a little bit about discipline and a bit about some good news, but just to catch you up on a few things or a few recent podcasts. We just had one that came up recently. It was an FDIC recap. Now, I realize it's June. FDIC took place a bit ago, but the important thing here was that this was a podcast. It was chaired, if you will, moderated, if you will, by Nick Wilbur. And he had on an industry veteran, Tom Shand, who had been to many FDICs over the years. And we also had Alex Moody on, who this was his first go at FDIC. And we really focused more on the exhibit side. Of course, we talked about the training because you can't talk about FDIC without the training, but we really did focus on the exhibit side a lot about how to navigate that show. So it's a good one to see from a long time attendee's perspective and a first timer's perspective. We also recently had one with Ricky Riley and Nick Wilbur, where we talked about, and this is going to be our first July podcast, where we talk about pre-engineering rigs. So that's one you really want to take a look at. We are in this environment right now of apparatus purchasing, where to not have that truck as squared away as humanly possible before you go to the engineering conference, to not have it as squared away is potentially a costly error on your part, on your committee's part. So make sure you take a look at that one. Listen in. That'll be our, I believe it's our first one in July. Will be about pre-engineering rigs. So that's again Ricky Riley and Nick Wilbur. So we talked about that. We're also we just recently wrapped up a rural water supply where we talked to Bill Adkins and Andy Sacadato. How can I forget his name? Andy Sacadato, again, about rural water delivery. So a number of things. Also, one other one you probably want to take a look at, because this is something that is going to probably occur more often than we have seen in the past. I am not by any stretch of the imagination saying that this is going to take the fire service by storm, because I don't know that it could, just because of various logistical challenges. But we did have a podcast recently on the first Charlotte, North Carolina's first all-electric station. Some of the thinking behind why they went with an all-electric station. It will be housing an electric rig. So we talked a bit about that rig itself and which one they decided to go with. We're going to continue to see things like this in the fire service, and it behooves all of us to review them when it happens. We may not all be at a point where we are looking to take down a legacy station and reconstruct. But, we could be. My fire station was the main part of it was built in 1927. So, it's coming up on being around here for 100 years. So we may be at a point, maybe not. I mean, I hope we keep it forever, because I think it's one of the best looking firehouses around. But, infrastructure wise, logistic wise, it is aged. So you just never know. So it behooves us to keep track of these things as we see them around. And of course, we have all of our podcasts archived at www.fireapparatusmagazine.com/podcasts. So go there. All of them are archived there. You can get a look at all of them. We've covered a lot over the past year. We just started this podcast last August, so it has been around for just about a year, and we've covered a lot of ground in a year. Been glad we've had interest from potential guests and things of that nature. So it's been good, and so fireapparatusmagazine.com/podcast to view all of our archived podcasts, or listen. They are available on most most platforms. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. All of those are available. So take a look. You can listen to it either audio wise, or you can view it on our YouTube channel as well. So wanted to talk a little bit about some good news this month, and that good news is that let me make sure. I'm going to get my glasses here, and let me make sure that I get the title right, because I always do mess up the title of this. And it is the AFG and SAFER reauthorization bill has passed the Senate. Now, what does that mean to us? It means that it has the bill has gone through the House, and it has now gone through the Senate, and now we are just awaiting the president's signature. This president has been sympathetic to the fire service traditionally, both as a senator. And I can remember he also spoke at the CFSI annual dinner a few years back. So he has always been sympathetic to the fire service. I wouldn't, I'm hopeful that he continues to be, and that he reauthorizes this. What does it do for us? Well, first of all, it keeps those grant programs, which have been critical, up and running for a few more years. I shouldn't say a few. It's. Let me see. It sets a new sunset date for September 30th, 2030. Right now, it is set to update unless this is signed into law. It will sunset on September 30th of this year, 2024. So it does keep these programs intact for some time. I was able to offer some remarks at the New York Home Day recently, and those remarks revolved a lot around the challenges that the fire service today is having with apparatus purchasing and equipment purchasing. We can't forget the equipment side of this. I know a lot of times, and I'm guilty of it myself, I focus on the apparatus side of this too much. There are also lead time issues with various types of equipment that protect firefighters and that help us to do our jobs. Tools as well, various components that we use to do our jobs and do them safely. So there are, that has impacted us as well. So we can't forget that, these grant programs, both SAFER and AFG, are critical to us to help us with our operations. But this is really good news. We've been calling for it. The CFSI has been working on this. FAMA, the Fire Apparatus Manufacturers Association, has its government affairs committee. It has been working very diligently to get this reauthorized, to get both programs reauthorized. We did have David Durstein on not too long ago, to talk about what we could do at a grassroots level. Hopefully you got out there and you worked with your federal and state representatives to work to get these programs reauthorized. They are critically important. Whether they are important to larger municipal departments. I've used the example before. I've seen it work. SAFER in action in the city of Philadelphia, which my town is right outside Philadelphia. I've been watching that closely. A number of companies that were shut down in 2008 or 2009 have been reopened. And really, when you look at it, we are not only doing this for our communities, but reopening those companies also increases firefighter safety as well. More units to respond, on the box alarms. There was one relatively tragic fire in Philadelphia where the nearest ladder company had been closed down, but it was one of the ones that was recently opened up. So again, the SAFER and AFG grants in action. So that was really a bit of good news. That happened on June 18th. June 18th is when the Senate signed off. I say signed off. They didn't sign off. They voted to approve. The House passed it. Gosh, I want to say right at it might have been, well, it was in May. I forget if it was the beginning of May or the end of May, but it was passed in May on the House side. So now just need the president's signature. That doesn't mean we should stop getting in touch with our federal and state representatives. But certainly on the federal side, asking your senators and your Congress people to congressional representatives to continue to encourage the president to sign this is not a bad thing. We all know the benefits, and especially I have Andy and Bill on quite a bit. Andy Sacadato and Bill Atkins on quite a bit, talking about rural water supply. But and we're going to have an upcoming podcast on speccing a rural engine. It's our rural areas that get hit by that have been hit by these unprecedented purchasing times more probably than some others. So again, this has been really good news. June 18th, it got through. Hopefully, it just needs one more step. So stay on your representatives. I wanted to talk about discipline real quick. As I said, we're going to have a podcast coming up on pre-engineering your rigs, making sure you've got everything nailed down in the very beginning. But Ricky Riley brought up an interesting point during that, and we talked about it a bit there. I'm not going to get into it crazily here because we are going to touch on it, but discipline when purchasing fire apparatus now more than ever. We need to go with the needs versus the wants. We really, really do have to focus on the needs versus the wants. And that's easy to do in the beginning. But then Ricky, he mentioned, you get out to the factory for your first meeting there, and all of a sudden you get to see all these rigs on the floor. Some of them are waiting for final inspection. Some of them are just about there, and you see all these options and all these things that now you got to have. That is a time. At that point, discipline is critical. Being able to the chairman of the committee needs to turn around and go, true. Unless, and certainly sometimes something is going to make absolute total sense for the rig as it's being built at that moment in time. If you can afford it, get into it. We talk a bit about budgeting as well. I'm not going to get into that because that was a big part of the conversation the other that we had for that. We recorded it the other day. It's going to be as I said, our I believe it's our first one in July. So discipline at that point, but also discipline at the beginning of the process. Discipline when you're sitting down at the firehouse and deciding what you are going to do. Do you need to improve upon what you already have, or do you just need to replace what you have because it's worn, because it's time, because it fits into your apparatus replacement program, whatever it may be? Discipline at that point to not just jump on every new gadget or component that you found. There are a lot of useful components out there. There are a lot of things on the technology side that are very, very exciting that bear inspection, that bear study on. But it doesn't always mean that you need to jump on it right at that moment in time. Some of them, should you decide to go with it, will be a departure from how your rig is, depending on talk about some of these electronic controls, depending on what they control, it's going to change your typical rig build. So, discipline at the beginning to be aware of what is available, to be aware of what is doable. I think at this stage of the game is more important. We are still looking at 24. It could get out to 48 depending on the level of customization. But at least 24 months. Sometimes you're getting into the 36 months. As we've said before, we have departments right now that are having rigs built that are from orders that were 2 or 3 years ago. This is just the reality that we're in. Again, I've said before, the manufacturers are all digging into the backlog. They are working to eliminate some of these lead times as much as they possibly can. But of course, you don't want to reduce the quality of the finished product. And plus, there are supply chain problems still, not as many as we had before. And in fact, back in December, when I wrote our outlook for 2024, the reports were that they had pretty much stabilized except for pockets. So hopefully those pockets of trouble have changed up. Also wanted to talk. This is going to get on the operational side. I don't usually do this, but it was something where in that discipline theme. I moderated a webcast a few weeks ago by Nick Papa. So and please visit fireapparatus.magazine.com/webcast to see it. It was on ventilation, and we were talking about a number of different parts of ventilation. And he showed a video, and the video he was showing was to demonstrate communication. But I brought up at the end during the Q&A that what it represented to me was discipline, was patience. The person who is the outside vent firefighter, it is so hard, especially when you are young, when you're a newer firefighter, to not want to take the window, to wait until you're told it's okay to take the window. You're there, you're ready. Conditions are changing. You're just. The discipline required to not take that window is critical. And so the discipline so I just thought I'd throw that out there. I know it's an operational thing. I don't usually get into that when I'm talking about, when we're talking about fire apparatus and equipment, but the equipment end is, that axe that the firefighter is holding to take that window out. The discipline there is critical, and discipline in anything you're doing with firefighting. And the discipline is rooted in the good communication. The good communication comes from, of course, the radios that we're provided with today. I look back, just occurred to me now. I look back, when I joined the fire company back in 1993, there were no handheld radios in the back of the truck for the members. They were in the beginning, 1990. I'm talking 1993. The officers all had their own that they could, bring home. And there was a radio on the officer's side of the truck. There was a portable. The driver could either use the mobile unit inside the cab or was at the pump operator's panel. Communication, when we think about where we were to where we are today, just about every firefighter can have a radio getting off the rig. There's no excuse for poor communication in a fire ground anymore, unless you're not drilling on it. And again, so now I'm getting into the training end, besides operations. So again, all of that comes into play, know how to use those radios, but that discipline that firefighter had on the roof during that video, very impressive. Of course, ventilation, and we know that ventilation and extinguishment have to be coordinated. But I'll tell you, it was watching him. It was, I remember back when I was a rookie, just wanting, you're there, you're waiting. Somebody tell me to do something, and it is hard. So that's just what I wanted to talk about with discipline. And finally, I wanted to just talk about July 4th. We've got July 4th coming up next week. Today's June. Today this will be deployed on June 25th. I'm recording it on June 24th. So next week is the 4th of July. And, I used to always say in our newsletters when I was still building them every day or every week and writing the intro for them, if you're on duty, please stay safe. If you're not on duty, enjoy the day. Enjoy those community events. I've always enjoyed the parades. I tend to let the newer guys, the younger guys, younger men and women, handle them these days. And I spend more time with my family. The Glenside, Pennsylvania parade, which I've been watching since I was probably 2 or 3 years old. Goes right by my parents' house. So my family and I get together that day and we watch the parade. It's nice. It's nice being able to hang out with them and watch the men and women of Weldon walk by or ride by in the trucks. As we go, as they go by. I often miss being in the truck, but at the same time, I missed a lot of picnics over the years, family picnics over the years. So it is nice to do that. They need help, of course, but these days we have we have a good force. We have plenty of drivers, and I certainly don't want to take that opportunity away, because I know one of the coolest things when I joined the fire company was being able to ride the trucks. And wave to the kids, who were looking up at those trucks just like I used to. And of course, then moving up to drive in the parade, that was always a good time. And then of course, being able to ride the seat during the parades and ring the bell. I got to have a bell on the trucks. I know our two newest ones do not, but the ringing the bell was always one of my favorite things. And then as we get by the firehouse and we hit the sirens and everything, that's always a good time too. So if you're on duty next week on July 4th, please stay safe. Hopefully it's not a busy day, and you can watch some of the festivities that go on TV. You can go to the back of the house and grill up some burgers and dogs or whatever you have. I mean, I'm a chicken speedy guy. My wife is from northeastern Pennsylvania, just south of Binghamton, and Speedies are big up there. So I love grilling up some Speedies as well. So please be safe out there. And if you do have some runs, hopefully they are few and far between, especially with this heat wave that has hit the nation over the past couple of weeks. So that about brings me to the end of this one. Again, a bit shorter. Didn't have a lot to cover today, but some really, really good news about the AFG and the SAFER grant reauthorization. That is really great. And but it doesn't end. Just remember, it doesn't end just because if the president signs it, and I'm certainly very hopeful that he will. It doesn't end there. It's almost like trade shows. You end it, but then you're already planning for the next one. And, already we'll need to start putting in place. We don't know what we're going to face over the next few years. We don't know how the House of Representatives or the Senate will change. We don't know how the presidency will change. This is going to carry us into 2030. So when you think about it, we will it won't be the next administration coming in at the beginning of 2025 that's going to be handling this. It will be the one after that. So we all have to keep that in mind. We all have to keep informing our congressional representatives and our senators about the importance of these programs. No one wants to rely on these programs. No fire company wants to rely, but some of us out there need to rely right now to help us at least defray some of the costs. As I said during my New York Home Day presentation, we have rural fire companies that are driving rigs that are 40 years old. They should not be in service anymore. They should be taken out of service. And the trucks have come such a long way that really they need to be taken out of service. Some of the newest trucks that I can remember that don't seem that new anymore go back to that obviously are not new anymore. Go back to the early 90s. And, they seem so modern. I was riding on this 81 rig, and the 93 rigs roll in, and, there's more people in the back and everybody gets a pack, and, all those kinds of things, really, really, really come into play, when you talk about that. But be that as it may, we have reached a point where, we're even farther along now. So really, at least to help defray. So, we're not in a place anymore where pancake breakfasts and chicken barbecues can help us out. Can really defray the cost of a pumper that sometimes can reach $1 million these days. Now, if we were comfortable, I think as a fire service, we became comfortable, although it hurt. We were comfortable with the idea that aerials were approaching that price point. But now we've got pumpers approaching that as well. So we do need all the help that we can get, but that does not mean that for those of us who are in better shape, we should be very careful about the money that we spend and the budgeting that we do, and do everything we can to stay within those budgets. So so that's really all I had today. Again, the great news about the AFG and SAFER grants. If you have a podcast topic that you would like us to cover, please don't hesitate to contact me, chris.mcloone at clarionevents.com. I'm happy to do that. We've done that a couple times already, where we've taken a topic that someone sent in to us, and we've covered it. So please do that. Again, fireapparatusmagazine.com/podcasts is where our archive is. You can find all of the podcasts that we've done in descending order. So the most recent one is first. So again, this has been Chris Mc Loone with Fire Apparatus and Emergency Equipment. Have a good one. Have a great July 4th holiday, and stay safe. An FDIC recap wouldn't be complete without mentioning the latest from On Scene Solutions, our podcast sponsor. This year, On Scene showcased its latest in fire apparatus solutions, including a 1,000-pound rated aluminum transverse toolboard with 70% extension for 40 to 96-inch deep pass-through compartments. Also on display was On Scene's configurable sliding cargo tray, complete with customizable tray separators, adjustable tie-downs, and fold-down gates. If you're trying to spec a tough fire truck, don't forget to spec On Scene at onscenesolutions.com.